because I can silence everybody else. All right, seeing that it's now past 10, I'm going to open the hearing on SB 15 FN, and I'm going to look to Representative Tudor for a motion. Or,
Yeah, I was going to make a motion.
sorry, Representative Cofalt for a motion. Yeah.
OTP on Senate Bill 15.
Okay, and I'm going to look for a second on that.
Representative Tudor seconds.
All right, it's now OTP and open for amendment, and I'm going to offer amendment 2023-1381H. And look for a second.
I will second.
So we now have the ability to discuss this amendment. I'm going to tell you that what this amendment does is essentially remove the written portion of the permission, making it just plain permission. You can have it in writing or verbal, however you want. Because we did hear testimony that some landowners may be hesitant to give permission in writing because they think they're taking on extra liability, even though they would be exempt from liability. But I can see where there's a gray area on that, because you could, if somebody comes on your property hunting when you don't have it posted, they are the owner is exempt from liability if they hurt themselves. But if you as a landowner invite someone onto your property, now there's a gray area. And is that written permission an invitation? It could be considered such in the court. So I can see why some landowners may want to just give verbal permission. I look at it as it's up to the hunter. If he wants to be in a he said, she said situation, he really wants to hunt the land, he or she, and there's if they want to hunt that land and they're not going to get written permission, but they're giving verbal permission, it's up to them to make that decision. So written came out, verbal only, or verbal or written, up to the landowner. What else did I put in there? Change the date to April 1st for removal instead of January 1st, which gives them more than 16 days. I mean, the archery season ends on December 15th. And then if it has to be down by January 1st, that's really only 16 days for a hunter to go gather all their tree stands in whatever weather those 16 days throw at them in December. I think we kind of all can agree that's not a safe situation to send someone out climbing a tree in December to pull stands down. So April 1st, I think, is a good date. We still kept the name and contact information needing to be put on the stand or blind. That allows, say, if the Timberland Association, one of their members, is going out to do a cut and they see a tree stand there, they at least know who to contact. Have it taken down. And I've added the whole section on who's allowed to remove the tree stand, because that was missing from here. There was no... The camera bill had a clause about who's allowed to remove it. So I just took that same paragraph from the camera bill and put it in here so that we have actually said that Fish and Game will remove it or direct the owner. And we heard from the colonel that if Fish and Game instructs the owner, then that removes liability from the owner for damage because they've been told and directed by Fish and Game. So that's in there now. And effective date changed to January 1st because we know that we can't do a shorter effective date when rules have to be recrafted. Did I miss anything? I think that's it. So, is there any other discussion on the amendment? Questions or comments? Representative Harvey.
I think this is, yeah, there it is. Concerning the taking down of the tree stand on April 1st instead of at the end of December or beginning of January, can you please tell me how tree stands are attached? I had a phone call from a constituent who is concerned because sometimes they're attached by webbing, and leaving them up through the winter, the webbing might rot. And then when you go to stand on the tree stand, it can fall and you can get hurt and sue the landowner. Can somebody clarify that for me, please?
I have many tree stands, and it really depends on the type of tree stand. If it's a climbing stand, it's usually a cable, a plastic wrapped steel cable. Not always, but it usually is. If you are using a ladder type tree stand, that typically has ratchet straps. and those are weather resistant and good for many years. I can tell you I've had a tree stand in place on land that I have permission to hunt that's been up for 3 years. I check the webbing of the strap, the ratchet strap every year, and loosen it and adjust it as needed with the tree growth, replace it when necessary. But that's a standard part of having the tree stand and keeping your stand in good working condition. It does not degrade over one winter. If somebody else has a different opinion, I certainly would entertain it, but that's what I would answer that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My feeling with ratchet straps, I've used them for years. A lot of it depends on the UV. So if it's on one side of the tree versus another, it may have different characteristics of how long they last. So maybe that's some part of it. I don't know. But UV seems to be the bigger issue rather than time for me.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Representative Pear.
Yes, I was interested in section 4, line 14. And really it's on line 15. The permittee shall carry such a permit on his person if it's a verbal or not written.
So I can help you with this. We're adding the new information into current law, and current law, as you can see, already requires written for anything permanent, anything that punctures a tree, or a pit blind, or a blind that has been dug into the ground or uses cut trees. Where we've added the new section that requires permission, but not necessarily written permission, only for those portable tree stands and blinds. So there is still a need to tell them about carrying written permission if they have it for those other instances where they may have a permanent tree stand or blind.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
All right, let's see if I've got all the substitutions correct, Mr. Chair. Representative Goley,
Yes.
Representative Khan. Representative Murner. Representative Kofalt,
Yes.
Representative Tudor. Representative Nodder,
Yes.
Representative Brown is yes. Representative Hill,
Yes.
Representative Nutting. Who am I missing?
Oh,
Renzulo, sorry. Representative Boyd,
Yes.
Representative Harvey,
No.
Representative Reed,
Yes.
Representative Demond.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
That's his first name. Representative Ford.
Oh, sorry, Representative Ford. See, I didn't get it right. I'm glad I asked.
Yes.
Representative Fox,
Yes.
Representative Massimilla. Representative Morton,
Yes.
Representative O'Brien,
Yes.
Representative Pear.
Yes.
And Representative Rosener.
The chair.
And yes, Chairman Spillane.
Yes.
Thank you. I have 18 yeas, 1 nay, and 1 absent, 1 no vote.
Anyone okay? Anyone object to consent for this?
That was for the amendment.
Oh, that was for the amendment. Sorry. All right, we're on the OTPA now, and we're open to discussion on OTPA. Does anybody have any questions or comments on OTPA right now on the bill as fully amended? Oh. Well, okay. We need to redo the motion now for OTPA because we need to have that on the table. Representative Reed, do
Mr. Chair, I move OTPA.
we have a second?
I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion on OTPA on the entire bill. Any questions, comments?
I do. Who was that second? Sorry.
That was a Kofalt.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, I'll have the clerk call the roll again.
All right, let's see how we do this time. Representative Goley,
Yes.
Representative Khan, absent. Representative Murner,
Yes.
Representative Kofalt,
Yes.
Representative Tudor,
Yes.
Representative Nodder,
Yes.
Representative Brown, yes. Representative Hill,
Yes.
Representative Renzulo, Representative Boyd,
Yes.
Representative Harvey,
Yes.
Representative Reed,
Yes.
Representative Ford.
Yes.
Representative, where are my Fox?
Yes.
Oh boy, Representative Massimilla. Representative Morton,
Yes.
Representative O'Brien,
Yes.
Representative Pear, Representative Rosner,
Yes.
Chairman Spillane.
Yes.
So we have 19 yeas, 0 nays, and 1 absent, 1 no vote.
Everyone okay with consent, I assume? We are going to put that on consent. And the motion was made by Representative Reed. Representative Reed, would you like to write the blurb for that?
Sure.
I was being polite by asking because you were the one who made the motion. Please have that to the clerk by tomorrow morning.
I've got some choice words for you later.
Okay, I'm closing the hearing on SB 15 and opening the hearing on SB 14. And I will entertain a motion from Representative Tudor.
Mr. Chair, I move that we retain SB 14.
It's been moved to retain. Do we have a second?
Yes, I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. It's now open for discussion. Do we have any comments or questions on retain? Representative Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I've been somewhat torn about this. I am a complete believer in the ability for people to maintain their privacy. I do understand that we don't want to necessarily move to the Midwest model. I believe also in our New Hampshire model of until a land is posted, treating private land as public land, because that I don't believe, and anybody who knows me knows this, I don't believe in complete power given to people on the basis solely of what they own. However, I think we need to work on this further because I'm very concerned about privacy, and especially to the extent that people might be stalked. They might have, I mean, there's more creeps than I would like in the world. And that's something that concerns me. So I think we need to work further on this.
Okay. Representative Tudor.
Yeah, I should speak to my motion for a second. Is that we have dueling amendments, we have the Swain Amendment, and we have the Goley Amendment. I just think that we had a work session later in the term. We could look at the good points of both these amendments and try to merge them into a single amendment. We kind of have the issue of, does the hunter need permission from the landowner to put up a camera? Or does the landowner have to post his land to say, I don't want you to put up a camera? And then a big issue that I think needs to be resolved is, for those folks that have property in current use recreation, if I then choose to put up a sign that restricts the use of my property, which violates current use recreation, do I then lose my 20% tax break that I get for allowing anybody to come on my property and hunt, fish, bird watch, whatever they want to do? So I just think there's a lot of things we could do to make this bill better and clarify things, and it would be worthwhile to work on a little bit more.
Thank you, Representative Tudor. Representative Goley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be voting against the retaining motion. As said, we have 2 amendments before us. 2 amendments that we heard in the public hearing of issues that needed to be addressed. I put forward an amendment that I worked with those folks and drafted to address those issues. I don't believe posting your property for prohibiting use of cameras has anything to do with the current use tax credit. I don't see anything in law that prohibits that. And I'm sure there's some folks out there that know the law very well, that are big landowners, that could address that. So I don't think that's an issue. What an issue is having somebody put a piece of surveillance equipment on your property without your permission is an issue. And these pieces of equipment now aren't like what they used to be, where you had to go in the woods, pull a card out, and actually take it home to download the images you had. These cameras do live time video and photos of your property. Whether you're 100 feet from your house or you're 1,000 feet from your house walking a trail on your property that you own, pictures can be taken real time and posted online. The amendment before us will address that issue, and it'll address it now. So I ask that you vote against the retain. Respect the landowner's rights. I know I wouldn't want somebody having a camera on my property on a walking trail if I own 25 acres and I'm out well beyond my house walking the property and they put it on a tree that I don't see it, watching me every morning walk my property without my permission. So I'm not voting for the retain. I hope the rest of you will follow me, and let's pass this landowner's Bill of Rights here that gives them the respect of their property as to what's put on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Harvey.
I will be voting against the retention as well. The emails that I've been receiving indicate that landowners are concerned about cameras being placed on their property without any identification, and what they then think they might do to protect their land and themselves is simply post the land. So therefore, there's going to be less and less land available for hunters. And those of us that do support ethical hunting, that's not what we want to see happen. So I will be voting against the retention so we can discuss the motions and also respect the wishes and the rights of landowners. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Any further comments and questions? Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Interestingly enough, as I sit through this as a freshman, I see so often we have a bill somewhere and someone says, well, this isn't quite right. And the committee goes ahead and sends it on. And we hope it's going to be fixed by someone else later. This has already come to us. So I am for the chairman's amendment, except for the 300 feet, based on my constituency's concerns about privacy, as Representative Goley and Representative Harvey said. However, I am all in favor of the piece about the current use land. And as Representative Goley said, if we aren't clear on that, and I'm sure there's someone out there that knows the answer, as you said, but if we aren't clear on this current use piece, and if there's anything we're not clear in about this, let's get it right before we take it to the House floor and before we move it on. I am, and again, I'm following my constituents' wishes that they do want privacy for their property. There's no question. But let's bring it to the floor solidly and make sure we have it right. Let's retain it and work on it.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Reed.
I hate this because the reason that I wanted to support retain is because I think we can make posting easier for people, which is something I've worked on before. But we just passed on consent needing permission for a tree stand. A camera is the amplification of the ability to surveil, which is much worse than a tree stand in my mind. So I can't imagine why we wouldn't require permission for that. So those are my thoughts right now. And that's all I have to say.
Just as chair, I'm going to clarify that what we passed on consent for the tree stands did not require permission for any placement, only for placing beyond the allowed time period. Representative Goley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a number of folks in the audience, and I wanted to see if we could get their take on current use and if posting with game cameras would affect current use status. They are the timberland owners, and they know very well what the laws are and how they are enforced.
Is there someone from the Timberland Association that would like to speak to the current use? I know that there's a list currently of things that are allowed to be posted for, such as OHRV and such. My intent with the amendment that I drafted was to add cameras to that list so that it was a definite exemption and nobody could ever lose that 20%. But if somebody wants to speak to whether that's clear or not already, I would entertain them to take the mic.
So for the record, I'm Jason Stock, the Executive Director of the New Hampshire Timberland Owners Association, and I'm reviewing this language now on the fly here. So as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, you would not be eligible for the 20% reduction in your assessment if you disallow game cameras. Is that what this?
No, this is saying that even if you post your land that says no game cameras allowed, you'd still get your 20%. Because currently, the current use says that you're not going to lose your 20% if you post against motorized vehicles like OHRVs, snowmobiles, and such. But that's the only exemption. If you post against somebody hiking, you lose your 20%. If you post against hunting, you lose your 20%. So what I wanted to do, and what this language does, is adds game cameras into the list of things you're allowed to post for and still keep your 20%.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I guess right now, the way the current use law is structured, and Rob, this thing just went to sleep on me. All right, thank you. And really the focus is pedestrian and pedestrian access. OHRVs, that's correct. OHRVs are kind of if it's motorized, they are obligated to get permission. But currently, there shall be no prohibition on skiing, snowshoeing, fishing, hunting, hiking, or nature observation. And so that's really, that's the universe for the recreational discount. If you were to say, and to me, game cameras, I guess I find this discussion actually a little bit odd because it's not really a pedestrian. I'm placing something on your piece of property. It's a act of placing something, not skiing or snowshoeing. I'm not sure this is even necessary, candidly. I mean, I appreciate the intent. If I post against game cameras and I can remain in current use and eligible for the recreational discount, fine. I'm fine with that. But again, to me, the way current use is structured is it really focuses on the use and not placement of something on my property, i.e. camera or tree stand. So again, I kind of question I kind of question the need for this, but I do appreciate the attempt. And if I post against game cameras and I continue to remain in the current use 20% recreational discount, that's fine. I'm fine with that. I mean, as long as I can continue to get my 20% assessment discount for recreation, if I post against game cameras, I'm trying to think here. It's almost like a double negative. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to lose. I'm not going to lose anything if I say no game cameras. I guess is the way I read this. Now, I don't know if there's other interpretations, and again, kind of reading this and interpreting it on the fly is a little bit tricky. So I'm kind of questioning whether it's even necessary, candidly, because it's not snowshoeing. It's not, it's not a pedestrian activity, really. Those are my thoughts on a 5-minute review and kind of discussion about current use assessment as it relates to the recreational.
I
mean,
can,
My
I can
preference would
add
be
on.
not to even, I don't think it's relevant in some respects, but nevertheless, I'll try to answer any questions.
So I have one more. When these determinations on whether you have violated current use come down, it's the local assessor who determines that, and then you have to appeal it if they've done so, correct?
Yeah, so if,
So
yeah,
every local assessor may have a different opinion on what might or might not violate that. And so proactively telling them they cannot remove it if you do this at least codifies that and locks it down, correct?
sure, that, I guess in that respect, it may be helpful. But again, I kind of question the need for it to begin with.
Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Representative Hill, you had a question.
I do, of the chair. Procedurally, I don't know why we're talking about two amendments that have not been introduced. It would seem to me the question on the floor is retain of the original bill.
Yeah, we did drift a little bit. The purpose of the retain was to try to combine amendments, so there was allowed some discussion of why we might want to combine those amendments or work on a solution that takes from both. That was the intent from the representative who made the retention motion. So, but I think we probably are done with that. Representative Nodder.
I don't have the original bill in front of me. Are these amendments significantly different than the original bill?
It depends on what you consider significant. They are different. But the changes are, if we get to those amendments being introduced, you'll hear what the difference is.
Just a follow-up.
Follow up?
Well, because if they're very different, they may require a public hearing.
They're not significantly different enough for a public hearing.
Oh, well, that would be an argument for retention. So,
Is there any other comments, questions? Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll jump in again. Even Mr. Stock's comments, it still isn't 100% clear. And we heard from a number of people testifying that there was concern about the current of loss of that piece of their current use. I think it's a really important thing, and I think we should. I'm going to still say we should retain this.
Thank you, Representative. Do we have any other comments, questions? Again, Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will just make a comment that if someone chooses not to allow tree stands, there's nothing in the law prohibiting the posting of no tree stands. And I don't see how that would be any different as to being put into current use statute. I think it was pretty clear that the current use has to deal with traveling through property and being allowed on property, not putting personal property of another on someone else's property. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Any other further comments, questions before we go to the vote on retain? Seeing none, I'll let the clerk call the roll.
Representative Goley, excuse me.
No.
Representative Khan is absent. Representative Murner,
Yes.
Representative Kofalt,
Yes.
Representative Tudor,
Yes.
Representative Nodder,
yes.
Representative Brown is yes. Representative Hill,
Yes.
Representative Nutting. Oh, wait, Rizzullo.
Yes.
Sorry, Representative Boyd,
Yes.
Representative Harvey,
No.
Representative Reed,
No.
Representative Ford, Representative Fox,
No.
Representative Massimilla, Representative Morton,
No.
Representative O'Brien,
No.
Representative Pear, Representative Rosner,
No.
Chairman Spillane.
Yes.
If I'm correct, we have 9 yeas, 10 nays, and 1 no vote.
Motion fails. 9 to 10. The bill is now open to further amendment. I'm going to offer amendment. Oh, that's right. Do we have a motion of ought to pass?
I'll move on to pass.
Do we have a second?
I will second.
It's been moved and seconded. It's now open to further amendment. I will offer amendment 1466. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I will discuss my amendment, and then we'll open it up to questions and discussion. So this amendment tries to strike a balance between the privacy of the landowners and the traditional hunting by restricting cameras from anywhere within 300 feet of a building or a driveway, but allowing the cameras on other parts of property unless the person who owns the property puts a sign up to post no cameras. They do not need to post the whole land, just one sign at the entrance to the property or any number of entrances at the property. It also changes the fine down to $100 from the $1,000 that the Senate jacked it up to. And changes the effective date to January 1st. And it also specifically says that the first violation of the any camera that's placed illegally would be a warning to let people know that they shouldn't be doing that. Give everybody a first chance to realize that they did something wrong. And that, I believe, is the extent of... Oh, and I changed it from written permission to regular permission. And then I've added the whole section on the current use to make sure that it's codified and no local assessor can come and say, well, in my opinion, in my reading of it, a camera is used for wildlife viewing. And so you posted it against cameras, so we're going to take away your current use. By codifying it, we've basically drawn the line and said that I don't care what you think as a personal assessor for this town. We've said as a state level that cameras can be prohibited just like OHRVs, and you must still let them have their 20% discount. I look at it as proactive and making sure that somebody's right to that discount is not infringed by their wish to not have cameras on their property. And that's all I have on that. Oh, yeah. Same hunting day. That was the other change. The remote cameras were the original bill had the remote cameras restricted 24 hours. That becomes a problem because if you get a picture of a deer right before sunset and it's 24 hours, that means you can't hunt there the whole next day because you've gotten it. 24 hours. So same hunting day, if you get it before sunset and the hunting day ends, you can still go hunt there tomorrow. And I'm pretty sure the deer's not still going to be standing there the next day, right? So I think that gives plenty of time. The whole night, we're gone into a new hunting day, and unless the deer's dumb enough to wait around for you, he's not going to be standing there in the same spot. So that was another important change to fix the Senate version. And that's all I've got. Anybody got questions, comments? Representative Pear.
Yes, thank you. I think you missed one other, to me, very significant change between the bill that was presented from the Senate and your amendment. It's in section 2A of the original amendment. Yes, it's still section 2A on your amendment. So line 11 of the amendment says a person may place a game camera that records, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In the bill presented from the Senate, it says no person shall place a game camera that records, transmits, et cetera, without the written consent of the property owner. So,
Correct. That's because we added the section that says where they're prohibited from doing it without the permission is 300 feet of any building on the property or any driveway. So we're allowing it still if it's deep in the woods or far enough away from a house to be put there without permission. But if it's within the 300 feet, it must have the permission. And I consider this to be a small step forward to changing it. And I think if it turns out that it wasn't enough, perfectly willing to come back with another bill that further restricts it. But I like to take things in small steps when you're taking away a traditional way of surveilling deer and patterning them and hunting. I think that the smaller steps taken gradually to alleviate the problem is better than taking and completely changing the way things go. And I would liken it to not amputating an arm when you can just stitch up a wound.
May I follow up?
Follow up?
All right. I think that if we make what I consider a significant change via amendment from that which was presented to the public, because the public testimony was all based on you can't put out a camera unless you get permission. And all the responses I have seen have been very much in favor of that. Then I think we have to go back to public hearing.
But we are not changing the way the current law is. This is just simply, this change in the amendment puts it back to the way it is now. The Senate's version of wording was turning the way it works now on its head. So this is going back, that whole section is just being reverted to the way it currently is. You currently do not need permission to go on anyone's property and put a camera on it. That's what we're trying to fix. Because right now you can put it anywhere. And I'm trying to say, let's limit it within 300 feet of any building or driveway first. And I specifically added the driveways in because we heard testimony that people might put a camera up to watch when somebody comes and goes and then burgle the house. It seems reasonable to me. We want to enhance the privacy, but I'm trying to strike a balance with this amendment to not completely change all the hunting rules right away. Let's take a small step forward, in my opinion. I've got some hands down here first. Representative Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the balance. As most people know, I prefer balance over anything. I guess my biggest concern is the 300 feet of occupied building or dwelling. I live in the city, so 300 feet is no big deal, right? But occupied dwelling concerns me because I imagine my colleagues at work or friends that I have across the state, they have a barn or a shed or something that may be more than 300 feet away from their house. And then if we say that building doesn't count, so you can put a camera near that shed or building because it's not occupied, that now someone can surveillance that particular piece of building on this person's property, even though it's not occupied. So that's my biggest concern. And then two, I think the effective date gives enough time that people will know if we don't change the bill, people will have enough time to know they need to get permission. But it's the 300 feet from the occupied dwelling that concerns me, because if it's occupied, of course you don't want to have a camera facing your house or near your house. But if you have other pieces or buildings on your property that you also don't want people to surveillance, that is a concern for me. Does that make sense?
And I asked Colonel Jordan to step forward to the microphone and explain the Fish and Game interpretation of occupied versus permanently occupied.
So, well, it's not a fishing game. It's been done by the New Hampshire Supreme Court. And an occupied dwelling is a dwelling that would allow for overnight accommodations. So you could have a camp, you could have a barn if it has a bed in it, I suppose would fit that description. So it's not something that we control. It's something the Supreme Court denotes. So I do have one other comment that I think is pretty important that people understand here, if I can make it, on the amendment.
Let me get to my other questions
Okay.
on the committee before I come back
Yes.
to you for that.
Yeah, it is a big issue.
You can
that I-
feel
that I
free
don't-
to stay in the seat because
Okay,
we might have
thank
other
you, sir.
questions anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're good.
Yes, thank you, Chairman.
Representative Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would also like to commend the chair on what is, for the most part, I think, a very reasonable compromise. So the 300 feet from an occupied dwelling or driveway, I just imagine if I had land and I had a pond that I liked to skinny dip in or a clearing that I wanted to sunbathe in, that the occupied dwelling wouldn't cover that. And again, I think it's important to remember that while we talk about these cameras in the context of hunting, it's not just hunting. It's anyone can put a camera up. Your ex could come and put a camera up without permission. So, and we can talk about the hunting aspect and what is traditional surveillance, because when the comment is made that it's traditionally surveilled by camera, well, traditional hunting would be going out into the woods and creating your own bow and arrow and carving your own arrowhead. So, what is traditional, but it's not just hunting. We can have fair chase conversation, but it's not just hunting, it's anything. And so the part of this amendment that gives me the most pause is the idea that the first violation has to be a warning, because that takes away the ability for the justice system to determine whether or not that was maliciously done or accidentally done, which is what they have the ability to determine now and pursue that accordingly as to what makes sense for that situation. And this is saying, no, even if it was my ex that put a camera on my property in such a way as to surveil me, that would still have to be just a warning. And that bothers me. So.
Thank you, Representative. And Representative Harvey.
I have a lot of trouble with the 300 feet. Right now, you can't fire within 300 feet of a building anyway, so that doesn't mean too much. And again, in talking to my constituents, they want written permission whether the camera's within 300 feet or not within 300 feet. And again, their remedy is then, well, then I just will post my land and we'll have less land for hunting. I agree with Representative Reed. I don't have a problem with the fine being levied the first time around. We're talking about somebody's privacy here. You can't just say to them, oh, please don't do that again. That wasn't very nice. It really needs to have some teeth to it. So I don't have a problem with that. With the fine being levied the first time around. I even like the $1,000. But my biggest thing is I want written permission no matter where you put the camera on somebody's private land. Thank you.
Representative Rosner.
Yeah, I want to second a lot of everybody else's spoken concerns about the 300 feet. I think when it comes to a person's property, people are within their rights if they own this space to say, yeah, as long as you stay away from this certain allotted space. But if it is your property and first and foremost, it's your things to do whatever you want to do in that space, I think it makes a lot of sense that whereas anything else that is public, people can go and do whatever they want, that if it is owned land by a specific person, they get to denote what they do and do not want other people, other strangers, doing on their land. And I think it makes sense in the sense of if we approach this as it is just good Samaritan citizens hunting. But I think that it becomes an issue when we look at this from the standpoint that this is state law and anybody who can go and spend $30, $40 on a camera can do whatever they want outside of 300 feet of an occupied space. I don't want to kind of reiterate everything that everyone else has said, but I think it's important. I like the idea that a landowner could denote what they feel is their standard and not have it regulated by the state what that standard has to be for them, whether or not they're going to be able to get that 20%, et cetera. And I also think, again, the warning and the fee, I don't know if I agree with how standardized that is. I think that on a case-by-case basis, that needs a little bit more wiggle room to address every situation specifically. Because again, innocent accident is very different than what is not an innocent accident.
Thank you, Representative. Any further comments or questions on the panel? I'll go with the Vice Chair first, and then we'll follow up with you,
We
Representative
might be
Harvey.
saying
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I too cannot support the 300 feet. We heard testimony from numerous people out there. And these landowners don't own just 2 or 3 acres. They own 40, 50, 200 acres. Pieces of property that are big enough to have a small pond on, a family cemetery, trails that they hold sacred that maybe a loved one, we heard, their ashes may be spread upon, that they may not want to be filmed or videoed and have posted online. I think they have that right. And they shouldn't have to post their property to say it's not right to put a camera and to video this. They just have the ability to say, no, I'll allow you to put a camera on, but please don't put it where some of these things happen. And, you know, I think Representative Reed made a great point when she talked about, you know, the swimming or whatever. And like I said, these big pieces of property, many do have ponds where things like this take place. This wouldn't prohibit a camera from there. So I can't support this. I think it needs to be a permission and strictly permission if you're going to surveil a property. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Harvey.
I would just like to ask if Colonel Jordan would please be allowed to make his comment, especially since he said it was very important, and I always respect Colonel Jordan's comments. Thank you.
And he will. I'm just trying to make sure that all of the discussion here gets to take place in case there's more questions for him, so we can have him address them all at the same time. Any further comments or questions? Representative Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to remind everyone, we had the conversation about the $1,000 fine during the hearings, and there was some concern that even though it said up to, theoretically, someone with 10 cameras could get fined $1,000 for each camera. And that, although it may sound great to have $1,000 fine to really stop something that you don't want, the potential is to fine somebody $10,000 if they had 10 cameras, and that was why I think on both sides we kind of looked at reducing that.
Any further comments or questions? Colonel Jordan.
So a couple things. I really appreciate the discussion and the interest in recognizing what was testified to by landowners, because I think it's very important, and I commend both these amendments for trying to do that. So two comments that I would like to make that are concerning about this particular one. First one is the discretion of officers. So that is a hurdle we as managers, at least I have, as the chief of law enforcement, have struggled with, because I'll have one individual officer who will issue a warning for a certain offense and another one issues a citation for that offense. And I've thought of getting a better handle of controlling that, maybe writing a policy that required them to write tickets instead of warnings. And what I found was exactly what Representative Reed commented to is, you can't, it's very difficult to do that. It's almost impossible to do that because the intent of the offense changes with every individual person. So someone may in fact just make a mistake. And in that case, that is appropriate for a warning, where other people may be intentionally filming someone and they've been warned not to do that. And that would tie my hands to not be able to address that. And I can't imagine facing an ex-wife, for instance, who was videotaped by her ex-husband during a divorce, and me telling her that I can't do anything except give him a warning. So I certainly appreciate what Representative Spillane is trying to accomplish. I will tell you this, sir, that our staff, I'm very confident when I tell you that at least my staff, I can speak for, is very good at that, I think. And I have found if I sit quietly and keep my mouth shut, that they do an outstanding job with discerning that. And I worry about trying to regulate that. More importantly, the one paragraph here that really disturbs me is paragraph starts on 2A, line 11. We've put in the bill now, so it will be in law, that says a person may place a camera that records or transmits images or data of any kind while unattended outside on the private property of another without written consent of the property owner. The problem that that's going to create is I now do not have the authority when the landowner calls me and says, I don't want that on my property, you need to go remove it. I can't do that because the law allows for it. That's concerning because now you've taken away all rights of our property owners. And I don't think that was Representative Splain's intent. I certainly don't think that was. But if you put that in this law, that's exactly what's going to happen is we will be powerless to remove it. I don't think we ever want to do that. So those are the two things and I thank you for your indulging me.
Thank you, Colonel. Any further comments or questions? I will just make a comment that I wish we had been able to retain this so that we could continue working on it. I think that if we could come back to that motion at some point today, I think it's probably a better way to go, because I really also want to point out that requiring somebody to get permission all the time like this, when the land is not posted, could be abused by people who just don't want people of a certain type on their property. And I'm going to point out that, you know, if I go and ask a landowner for permission and I'm granted permission for the camera, and somebody who looks different than me or sounds different than me or doesn't have drive a truck as nice as mine goes up and tries to ask for this permission and is denied, I think we're opening ourselves for a little bit of a problem here with people not getting the same opportunities as others. And I'd hate to see that happen, but that's where I stand on it. And I guess if there's no other comments from anybody, we'll go ahead and ask the clerk to call the roll.
Representative Goley,
No.
Representative Khan, absent. Representative Murner,
Yes.
Representative Kofalt,
Yes.
Representative Tudor,
Yes.
Representative Nodder,
Yes.
Representative Brown is a no. Representative Hill,
Yes.
Representative Nutting. Sorry, I keep it. Representative Renzullo. So sorry. Representative Boyd.
Yes.
Representative Harvey.
No.
Representative Reed.
No.
Representative Ford. No. Representative Fox.
No.
Representative Massimilla.
No.
Representative Morton.
No.
Representative O'Brien.
No.
Representative Pear. No. Representative Rosner.
No.
All right, if my math is right, we have 7 yeas. Chairman Spillane, I keep forgetting him.
Yes.
So sorry. Yeas 8, nays 11, no vote 1.
Amendment fails, and the OTP motion is what we're back at, and it's open to further amendment.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion, move amendment 1446H.
The chair recognizes the vice chair making motion of offering amendment 1446H. Is there a second? Representative Pear. Amendment 1446H has been moved and seconded. I'll let the vice chair speak to his amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this
1420H.
This amendment makes some of the same changes yours made, as well as a few others. This allows for no person shall take game animal or fur-bearing animal within the same calendar day, for the same reasons why we discussed earlier. Also, adds in on lines 14 and 15 that a game camera placed on state-owned or managed lands or on municipally owned property, which we heard needed to be addressed. So that adds into that section as well. Goes on down to basically the same. The camera's got to be labeled, removed from a conservation officer. They need to be contacted. And changes the fine to up to $125 for each offense. Gets instead of $1,000, which I think we all heard was an issue. And it changes the effective date, just like yours, to January 1st, 2024, so rules can be implemented.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Are there any comments and questions? Representative Hill.
Mr. Chair, would it be possible to ask for a 10-minute caucus?
We could do that. Would the Vice Chair like to caucus with his people as well? Okay. We will, actually, we can go down to room 300A. We'll go down to Janine's office and we'll do our caucus there.
Where?
We'll be back at 11:10. Okay, it's 10 past and we're back to work here. We left off with discussions on Amendment 1446. Were there any further discussions to be had before we call the roll on this? Okay, yes, Representative Brown.
No, I'm
Okay.
asking you to give me a second. That's what I'm asking.
I'll talk while you're
Okay,
organizing.
thank you.
Representative Reed.
Thank you. I actually think I prefer the Senate amendment. I don't have a problem with hunters having to wait 24 hours after taking an image. So I think I'll just be going with the Senate version.
Representative Ford.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to make it note that I was for us to caucus because I was taken aback by the potential of discrimination based on the property owner's bias. But after talking with my colleagues, understanding that we have federal and state regulations that help folks when it comes to discrimination or if they felt they were discriminated against. And so I just want to make that clear and appreciate Representative Goley and his amendment to this to make it more clear for what should happen with game cameras on property. So.
Anybody else?
I have a point of information.
Representative Brown.
But correct me if I'm wrong. You said 1446, but I think we're 1420
No, 1446.
on goalies.
1446.
Yeah, there was another.
That's the original bill.
Oh, thank you.
No, that's an amendment. You know that is it an old amendment?
Here's another copy of it.
I gave you an extra copy this morning as
It's
well.
okay. All right. Good. Thank you. So we're 1446.
Do we have everyone back in the room? Yes, we do. Okay. All right, I'm going to ask the clerk to call the roll.
This is on.
The amendment.
Yep. All right, everybody pay attention. We're going to change this a little bit. Representative Kofalt,
No.
Representative Goley,
Yes.
Representative Khan, Representative Murner,
No.
Representative Tudor,
No.
Representative Nodder,
No.
Representative Brown, no. Representative Hill,
No.
Representative Rizzulo.
No.
Renzulo, Representative Boyd,
No.
Representative Harvey,
Yes.
Representative Reed,
No.
Representative Ford, Representative Fox,
Yes.
Representative Massimilla, Representative Morton,
Yes.
Representative O'Brien,
Yes.
Representative Pear, Representative Rosner,
No.
Chairman Spillane.
No.
All right, 8 yeas, 11 nays, 1 no vote.
Amendment fails. We're back to OTP on the original bill as written. Representative Rosner.
Forgive my freshmanness, but would I be able to ask for a motion for retain?
You could ask
Or
to
reconsider.
reconsider. I think we have to dispense with the OTP first, or we can ask that the motions for OTP be withdrawn so that a reconsideration could be taken, and then we could go back to OTP if needed. Who made the original second in motion on the OTP, Mr. Clerk?
I didn't record the second, unfortunately.
Here.
Kofalt,
I believe I
No.
made the second.
On the OTP.
and unfortunately, I didn't record that. I have Kofalt.
And I made the motion.
And you did it? Okay.
Thank you.
So Kofalt was second, and the vice chair was the motion.
I will withdraw my second.
Okay. And would you be willing to withdraw your motion of OTP so that Rosner could reconsider?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to stick with my motion of ought to pass. I try to work a compromise here, and I don't see that going forward. The Senate sent us a bill that landowners have asked for. It deals with the surveillance of property. I think we had, unfortunately, 2 amendments in front of us to address, and specifically one to address the surveillance of property and property rights. This will go ahead. I don't think landowners want to wait any longer on putting a stop to surveilling property without written permission or without permission. So I will keep my motion and hopefully get a second from someone to take a vote on this.
Mr. Chair,
Representative Harvey.
I'll second it.
We have another second, but it's been thrown on the floor for it. Is there any discussion? Representative Nodder first.
If the ought to pass fails, can it then go back to the motion to retain?
Yes. Further question? Okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will state, once again, I don't think this bill needs to be retained. I think it's been vetted. We have stuff in front of us, and the longer we wait, the more surveillance is going on without permission, whether it's on your local pond this summer or the back 40 that you may own. And I'm willing to go forward with this now. Thank you.
Representative Rosner.
I just want to say that I'm completely happy with doing the OTP, and then if that fails, we do the retain. I did originally vote to retain, and I will vote OTP on the SB, but I felt as though we, as a body here, are really not on the same page. So our vote on OTP, I'm happy to do. And happy to see that that comes first. I just wanted to clarify my reason for bringing up retain and not necessarily knowing how that process works. Thank you.
Representative Tudor.
Yeah, I just think they ought to pass this at this point. I mean, I wasn't at the public hearing, but I did watch the tapes, and there were numerous issues brought up about this, about the Senate bill, and that's the reason why we wrote the 2 amendments. And just to punt and go back to the Senate bill, I think is the wrong thing to do. I think we should kill the ought to pass and then go back and reconsider the retain so we can actually work on this thing and make it better. Because it's not going to matter about your pond this summer. This bill isn't going into effect until January, no matter what we do. So we have time to work on it and still get it out there for the next hunting season, because that's really what this bill is about. It's not about this year.
Thank you. Representative?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we've all been on the receiving end of the emails. There have been multiple emails from many landowners, constituents. They would like to see us act on game cameras and needing permission to put game cameras on property. We're all in agreement. The Senate has sent us a bill that will do that. I think at this point, it would be neglectful not to pass the OTP on the Senate bill.
Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just got to respond to the waiting to January 1st, 2024. In putting this off and waiting, it won't be ready for January 1st, 2024, even by retaining. We're looking at now, we're in May doing January 1st, 2024. We retain this, we won't be back here until November, December voting on these. So it won't be in place anytime close to that by the time rules are put in place. So yes, time is of the essence. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Representative Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one quick note that the Senate bill is written, it takes effect 60 days after it's passed. So that one would be quicker than what's being proposed with January 1st of next year.
Thank you, Representative. Anyone else? Representative Brown?
I have two. I think that issue of the passage in 60 days was discussed in the public hearing, that was probably not a good idea because it was too quick. Follow up?
Follow up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll say it again. I guess maybe this is the Boy Scout piece coming out. Why are we approving something that we're all seeming to say isn't ready yet? I just don't get it. Let's put a committee together and work together. I don't know what Representative Goley, how he worked with it, and he told me he worked with the groups. I don't know exactly what that conversation was. I just can't send something along that we have so many questions about. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll. The motion is on the OTP, no amendment.
I think we've had too many votes here. Wait a minute.
Do we need another sheet?
No, I got them. Jane? I had them all set ahead of time here.
Yeah, but we've done too many.
Where's my blue folder?
Under here.
There it is. Thank you.
Representative Ford, while we're waiting.
Just to clarify, we are OTP, the original Senate bill, no amendments.
Right, that's the vote at the moment
Okay.
because the amendments were defeated.
Okay.
So if the OTP is also defeated, we can then move back to another motion for anything, ITL or retain.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that time, Mr. Chairman. We will start with Representative Kofalt,
No.
Representative Goley,
Yes.
Representative Khan, Representative Murner,
No.
Representative Kofalt.
You did him
Sorry. Representative Nodder, I looked away from the sheet for a second.
No.
Representative Brown, no. Representative Hill,
No.
Representative Renzullo. No. Representative Boyd.
No.
Representative Harvey.
Yes.
Representative Ford. Representative Reed.
Yes.
Representative O'Brien.
Yes.
Representative Massimilla. Representative Morton.
Yes.
Representative Page. Representative O'Brien. Oh, see, I get that.
You did that.
All right, let me back up. Let's do this again. Representative Ford was yes. Representative Fox.
Yes.
Had my Representative Massimilla.
Yeah.
Representative Morton.
Yes.
Representative O'Brien. There we go. No?
Yeah.
Yes.
He was a.
Thank you.
Thank you for the multiple votes.
Representative Pear.
Yes.
And Representative Rosner.
Yes.
All right.
You
if our-
forgot me, Mr.
And Chairman Spillane.
Yeah, Representative Tudor, you didn't get either.
Representative Tudor is no.
Oh, okay. And Chairman Spillane.
No.
Are we good?
No.
Everyone thinks it's easy until they have to do
You
it.
should have 9 and 10. You only have 8.
Who did I
You must have
miss?
missed somebody.
Mr. Chair, can I ask
Myrna?
clarification?
Maybe I did this. Maybe
Yeah,
I.
he did vote. You didn't vote.
Clarification, I thought I voted no, but he over there evidently heard yes. I did vote no, right?
Yes.
I have you as a no.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Just for clarity, let me do this again. Representative Kofalt.
No.
Representative Goley.
Yes.
Representative Khan. Representative Murner.
No.
There it is. Okay.
He had to find the one he was missing, sorry.
Thank you. So we have 10 yes, 9 no, and 1 no vote.
So OTP passes. No amendment. And the motion was made by the vice chair, so he will be writing the blurb. Is there going to be a minority blurb written? I can do that.
This isn't going on consent?
Okay. So I will be doing the minority on that one, and
Goalie's got the majority.
yep, you will get the majority from vice chair. I will now close the hearing on SB 14. Thank you all for your patience today.
On the 12th, if anybody's. Put it on the spot. Yes, no?
What are we doing on the 12th? Is that the, oh yeah, Owlbrook. We got so many replacements here today, but
Yeah, all right.
for anybody who's an actual member of the committee, does anybody have any questions about the Owlbrook coming up on the 12th? Do we have anybody who's definitely going to be there or definitely isn't going to be there? You're still not getting emails?
And I've been to IT.
I don't know what's going on with that.
I'm going.
You're going.
Show of hands.
How about a show of hands for the vice chair so he can?
So the only thing I know is just from what you said, Owlbrook on the 12th.
Catherine, are you going?
Yeah, there's a thing at Owlbrook, and
Sure.
I'm in.
you can count me.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, sorry. And a couple unknowns.
Did you get Representative Ford as well?
Yep. 1, 2. Rod, James, you going? Okay. Let me know.
All right, so you've got at least a ballpark.
Jump in.
Go for it.
So we're working with DES to get a boat trip on the river, not out on the ocean, but up on the Piscataqua River to look at the proposed boat ramp and launch the Fish and Games wants, the DOT wants to put in on Hilton Park, and an opportunity to see an oyster farming operation and how they do that, which is really interesting if you've never seen it. DES has got a 35-foot boat, and Fish and Game might bring one of their boats. Still working on the date. It had to go up the chain to the important people, and they haven't talked.
So when we get a date, we'll work on that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to let people know we're not going to hear the bill on the boat ramp. That went over to Public Works. So even though it's a boat ramp for Fish and Game activities, it's gone to Public Works because they deal with boat ramps. But we can still see where they're planning to put it. And thank you again, everyone. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you at the next session.